Muckraker punk. 3 bullet points and the truth.
Wait a minute. You gotta adjust your volume.
Test, 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 test.
Unbelievable. Okay, try it again.
Muckraker punk. 3 bullet points and the truth. Muckraker punk. Muckraker punk. 3 bullet points and the truth. Muckraker punk. 3 bullet points and the truth. Muckraker punk. 3 bullet points and the truth. Muckraker punk. 3 bullet points and the truth.
Okay, all the platforms. Oh, I forgot. YouTube doesn't like you.
Yeah, we don't need to. Yeah,
Take you off YouTube.
thank you. Muckraker punk. 3 bullet points and the truth. Subscribe on Patreon. Subscribe on Patreon. Muckrakerpunk.net. Muckrakerpunk.net. Muckrakerpunk.net.
Are you ready to start your show?
I am ready.
All right. As usual, when you see the on the air sign, you're on the air, okay?
Okay. I'm on Facebook and Twitch streaming.
You are.
Okay.
And they've accepted you.
I like to be accepted. Thank you.
Okay. Here we go.
Hello, Think Twice Radio, and welcome to another episode of Muckraker Punk, where we give you 3 bullet points and the truth. So thanks for tuning in, all the live streamers out there on watching on Twitch and Facebook. Welcome to the Metachewy live podcast. So I'm Metachewy. I'm going to be streaming a show for about an hour. And some of these clips, I'm going to take them. A lot of my Muckraker Punk clips I'm going to be posting on Twitter. So I'm trying to take advantage of not only my following on Twitter, but also kind of the community there. And Twitter constrains you to only being able to share 2-minute videos unless you're like a pro subscriber. And I have not made the big bucks yet, so I'm not a Twitter pro user, which is maybe I can get there someday. But I'm going to be recording an hour-long show, and I will take some of these clips, clip it up. I'll post some segments to YouTube, and also some of the 2-minute segments that I'll create from this kind of this raw footage will I'll tweet out on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, follow me. I'm at MuckrakerPunk is my handle. And let's get started. So welcome to another show of Muckraker Punk, where we give you 3 bullet points and the truth. So let's start with the big story in the city of Buffalo this week, which was the rise of fascism. So I had covered in a previous episode kind of about the rise of fascism, which for those of you that maybe hadn't watched my previous episode, fascism is kind of a play on words, obviously, with the word fascism. So fascism, at least in the city of Buffalo's context, is kind of the forces of the SAS Institute, this large multi-international Fortune 500 corporation, and the city of Buffalo, and kind of just the rise of fascism is essentially public servants who are supposed to be serving the public prioritize the SAS Institute over not only the citizens of Buffalo, but the taxpayers. So this week we had a couple of the actual fascists that were involved with the SAS Institute were sued. So this week, Mayor Byron Brown and Commissioner of Permits and Inspections Kathy Amdur were both part of a lawsuit. So they were sued by the plaintiffs, which were the Partnership for the Public Good and a few other citizens, but also nonprofit organizations who sued the city over PRI, the PRI program. So the Proactive Rental Inspection Program. And essentially long story short, the city of Buffalo has been dealing with a lead poisoning crisis for what seems like forever now, but it goes back at least a decade since it's become public knowledge. But essentially, there's an epidemic of lead poisoning in the city of Buffalo. Specifically, I know most people, they think of lead paint and they think kind of Flint, Michigan, right? So that was a shocking thing when there was actual lead in the water. So the city of Buffalo has a major lead issue on par. It actually is surprisingly on par with the Flint, Michigan. But the lead, while there probably is lead in the actual water, most of the lead problem in the city of Buffalo is specifically in old units. We have some of the oldest housing stock in the country, and specifically lead paint. So lead paint was something that was used, historically. It was an industrial product, and it was embedded in paint that was used to paint apartment complexes. So essentially, and there's been multiple studies that have come out. There's been consultants that have studied. This has been public knowledge for a while that the city of Buffalo has a lead crisis in the housing. So specifically lead paint in rental housing. So a couple of years ago, the city created a PRI program or a proactive rental inspection program where the Department of Permanent Inspections would proactively inspect rental units in the city just to make sure they're safe with tenants. A major issue when it comes to the lead paint is that young children, specifically those under the age of 6, they don't know any better, and they are breathing in chip paint, but also they go to a windowsill and ingest actual lead paint from chip paint in apartments. So the PRI program was marketed and put in to help prevent this by inspecting permits before they become rental units. And essentially what we have here is the plaintiff, the Partnership for the Public Good, which has been very vocal on the issue amongst many other community-based organizations. They've essentially sued the city and the Department of Permanent Inspections to comply with their own program. So kind of an example of citizens here in the city of Buffalo do not have a government that functions efficiently, and essentially it's come to the point where now a community-based organization is stepping up to the plate to actually sue the government to address a problem that they should be doing on their own. So it's been met with indifference, and essentially, a couple of the sashes. So again, Mayor Byron Brown, and I call them sashes because the SAS program, right? So the Buffalo Police Reform Agenda, Item 10, data transparency. The city of Buffalo entered into a $2.2 million analytics contract with the SAS Institute to promote data transparency. And the whole program was marketed for the police department to create one of the most innovative, transparent police departments in the country. And essentially, this was a lie. It was a lie. The mayor and City Hall lied to the citizens because it was politically, the political moment called for them to address policing. And they, it sounded like a good marketing clause to have data transparency. And they brought in the SAS Institute. And this first and primary use of the SAS Institute was not the police department. It was actually the Department of Permit and Inspections, where Catherine Amdor, the commissioner of the Department of Permit and Inspections, and her team of inspectors were the focal point of the SAS project. So during the $2.2 million SAS analytics contract and the 1,080 consulting hours that the SAS Institute consultants provided the city, the majority of their time and effort was spent in DPIS, specifically developing an at-risk properties dashboard, and also they developed an inspector workforce dashboard. So I'm calling on, and essentially, the SAS Institute stole money from the city of Buffalo, not just the city of Buffalo, the entity, but also the taxpayers and the citizens. So $2.2 million were paid by the city of Buffalo to the SAS Institute. We had 2 payments in June of 2021, and then yearly installments in March of 2022 and April of 2023. And results, although the results were stated during council discussions that the results of the SAS Institute would be made public, it's now 4 years later, and results of the SAS Institute have not been made public. So I think with the lawsuit by the Partnership for the Public Good, and especially with the city wanting to be transparent, I am calling, and I think I'm calling on all citizens to call on the city for the city of Buffalo to release results of the SAS Institute study, specifically the at-risk property dashboard in the Department of Permit and Inspections and the inspector workforce dashboard. We're also calling on the city of Buffalo to release the use of force dashboard developed by the SAS Institute is part of the city's police reform agenda. It's time to become the most innovative and transparent police department in the country, and that can only happen with the release of the SAS Institute data and dashboards. So the SAS Institute, big news. That's kind of the big story this week, is that the Department of Permanent Inspections was essentially sued by community-based organizations to comply with their own program, but also comply with the law. So that's the leading story. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or thoughts on that. But I think, it's time that we have transparency on the SAS Institute project. The city spent money, and it was stated that it would be public, and it's never been. So we need to demand transparency and accountability. And we're calling on Chief Information Officer Daryl Springer, Chief Innovation Officer Kirk McLean, the Mayor Catherine Amdor, and Police Commissioner Joseph Gramaglia to make results of the SAS Institute public. Please. Thank you. So next, the City of Buffalo reassessment project begins. So the city of Buffalo has entered into a project to reassess the city's properties. So the reassessment is essentially a way to distribute the tax levy of the city. So obviously, budgeting, revenues, expenses, right? So one of the ways that the city of Buffalo generates revenue is through taxes, specifically property taxes. And the city's assessment roll is composed of over 93,000 parcels. And that data information is available in a PDF file that's not machine readable. So the assessment department has made a new assessment roll. But essentially, this reassessment project is a way to take the tax levy. So the city has a total tax levy that it needs to raise in property taxes. It takes that giant number. I think it's over $140 million. I could be wrong. But it takes the entire tax levy and it divides that by 93,000 parcels. So I think common sense, right? It's not every single parcel. You can't just take the tax levy and divide it by the number of parcels, 93,000. Each parcel is different, right? So some parcels are worth less, some parcels are worth more, and depending on the value of your parcel, that determines what percentage of the tax levy your property pays, right? So every individual parcel on the city's tax roll pays a percentage of the entire tax levy. So the reassessment is a way for the city to, as they call it, equitably redistribute the tax levy. And yes, that's the point of it, but the reassessment is the way that number gets divvied up. So the city did not reassess properties for over 20 years. And then recently in 2019, 2020, the city conducted a new reassessment. So it's been about 5 years, and they're going to do another reassessment, which is good. The more often you can do a reassessment, the more equitable, or the more the property tax levy is kind of fair. So, for example, if you don't do a reassessment for 20 years, you have certain neighborhoods that appreciate in value and certain neighborhoods that depreciate in value. And if the reassessment's not done, the properties that have ascended in value will continue to pay tax rates at the lower percentage than properties that have depreciated. So in a perfect world, right, the reassessment would be done every year. And I think with technology, we're moving towards a future where that will be very much possible. But it's 2024. The government has not caught up yet, and they went out and they hired a consulting team. They have a team of assessment and taxers in their department that do this manual process that does use some software, but they can only do it every 5 years because it's an expensive, laborious process. But I think we are moving towards a future where hopefully that reassessment could be done every year with machines. So the reassessment project has begun, and I actually did attend a reassessment meeting. So I am a resident of the Fillmore district, which is one of the most gerrymandered districts. I would say I have yet to see a more gerrymandered district in the entire United States. Definitely in the city of Buffalo, it's the most gerrymandered district. But if you search the City of Buffalo reassessment meeting, they actually have started holding public meetings. So this 2025 reassessment link, let's see if I can straighten it. So this reassessment Buffalo project, this is where the information for the city's reassessment project, and obviously the Common Council, they know what's going on and they're not publicizing it, but they have released a property timeline, and they've also started holding public meetings. So I encourage everyone, some meetings that have actually passed at this point, they're holding it by council district. But yeah, kind of informational meetings are going on now with the Common Council. Let's take a look at this project timeline. So as I'm recording this, it is, what is it? It is July 2024. So we're kind of in this stage in, let's see if I can find my dates. So we're kind of in this, the valuation. Yeah, essentially, and I guess I can speak because I was there, right? So maybe, yeah, the city's website, if you just search Google 2025 reassessment project, and there's information that the city has posted publicly. The Common Council is not publicly promoting this. I will say that my council member. So yeah, I did attend the. So I did attend the Fillmore District reassessment meeting, and my council member, my council member Mitch Nowakowski, who did promote the reassessment in their like virtual email, they were not present. I asked after the meeting his legislative assistant, Phyllis, why Mitch wasn't there, and she just said that he had another appointment. And then when I pressed what other appointment it was, she said, I don't think I need to tell you that. And she kind of looked at me with bug eyes. I think she knew who I was, and I don't think she appreciated some of my items I filed with the Common Council, which I'll get into a little later. But the Fillmore council member did not attend the reassessment meeting, and I think you're seeing a mixed bag. So some members of the Common Council are attending, some others are blowing it off. But essentially, the reason this matters is this is the opportunity that the city redistributes the tax levy, right? And in theory, they're doing it equitably, and they say they're doing it equitably. But the reality is that they are working behind the scenes to kind of their developer buddies, their friends, the insiders, helping them kind of lower their assessment, and then kind of leaving the rest of the public to just kind of get whatever the assessment team gives them. So, and I think just attending, they have information on their website too, but I think it's something to pay attention to because our city is facing a financial crisis, and you're already starting to see it in multiple areas of increasing fees. They just increased the property tax over 7%, and the mayor had asked for 9%. So they are raising taxes, and what they're going to do is also change the rates people pay. So I think it's very important that residents, specifically not just property owners, but also renters, right? So if you're renting from a landlord and their property tax bill gets up, again, they will pass that rising expense to the consumer or to renters. So it's not only if you own or live in a house in the city of Buffalo, it's very important to be paying attention to the reassessment project. And I'll do some more data crunching into actually looking at the numbers, but meetings are going on now, and I encourage everyone to attend their council meetings or reach out or just stay informed. I think in September, they'll be sending out a mailer that will kind of give the initial evaluation. And there's a whole period of you can appeal, you can go back and forth. So I think the more that citizens are informed about the reassessment, the more fair and equitable the actual reassessment will be, right? Because if citizens stay in the dark in this process, the equitable will only be defined by what the Common Council, what the City of Buffalo says is equitable. Without any pushback, without any accountability, I think we will most likely see a situation where insiders, friends of the insiders, family of the insiders, and developers will get favorable assessments, and people that are uninformed will get higher assessments and carry a bigger burden. So I think that's one of the most important things going on in the city of Buffalo right now is the reassessment project, and it's not getting the attention that I think it should. So that's the assessment project. Let me know if you have any questions or anything you'd like to see me cover. I think it's right. We're in the middle of it, and the new assessment won't come into effect until 2025. So this is a long process. This is just the first public kind of participation stage, but I think I will cover this more as we get into the appeals, as letters go out. So let me know if there's anything you don't understand, anything you'd like to see me explain. And yeah, that's the reassessment project for the city of Buffalo. Okay, so a pilot was approved. So kind of building on my point of the reassessment. So each property in the city of Buffalo pays a tax, right, based on their assessed value. And there's multiple kind of tax benefits, available to homeowners, available to developers, and whatever. One of the ways that what the true tax and the actual tax that people pay gets kind of manipulated is through something called pilots, which is payment in lieu of taxes. So this is a tool available to local governments that is kind of supposed to help encourage development on pressing needs. And the City of Buffalo's Office of Strategic Planning Commissioner, or the City of Buffalo Office of Strategic Planning's Executive Director, Brendan Mahaffey, this week sent to the Buffalo Common Council a pilot proposal for a property at 630 Linwood for 875 Lafayette LLC. So this is the old Millard Fillmore Gates Hospital renovation that's going to be mixed-use apartments. And I'm reporting on it because today the Common Council unanimously approved a pilot for 875 Lafayette LLC to receive a payment in lieu of taxes, or pilot. I'd love to say I had more information, but for some reason the council's legislation live stream did not broadcast the actual debates and deliberations. But it was in the council minutes that they unanimously approved. So I think one of the reasons the reassessment matters, and this pilot is kind of just an example of, right, the city assesses people, but just based on what your assessment is and what your tax you're supposed to pay, doesn't always end up being the true number because there's certain tax benefits. I know, like as a homeowner, there's the STAR program. So there are benefits that even homeowners don't pay what their full assessment is, but pilots or payment in lieu of taxes are something that's traditionally leveraged by the bigger developers in the city and by the city's economic development wing. So I wish I could have more information, but it's something, again, the Common Council is not going to promote that they just unanimously approved a pilot for an LLC. And I don't know enough about it. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I just want it to be public knowledge, and I want the public to be informed that the Common Council did unanimously approve Executive Director of Strategic Planning's Brendan Mahaffey's proposal for a pilot or payment in lieu of taxes for 875 Lafayette LLC. Oh, this is a good one. OJ on the run. OJ on the run. So obviously the white Bronco brings back echoes of O.J. Simpson. I think I was too young at the moment to experience the full ramifications of, O.J. Simpson in a white Bronco. So the picture so essentially Councilman Rashid Wyatt of the University District sent a letter in the city's finance committee meeting calling for the Buffalo Water Board's Commissioner O.J. McFoy to show up in council chambers and explain recent rising rates in the city's water bill. And O.J. McFoy did not show up. He sent a letter to the council saying that he was not able to attend. And Rashid Wyatt, he was as diplomatic as he could, right? He's a council member. He has to be diplomatic with the employees of the city. And he was like, I guess O.J., it's unfortunate he won't be here. I look forward to being at future meetings. So I'm just a talking head on the internet, so I don't need to be tactful, but O.J. McFoy is never showing up in the Common Councils. He has not showed up, and he will not show up. So he's on the run. If anyone knows where O.J. McFoy is or where he can be found, please drop a comment or send a tweet. But O.J. McFoy, he is the executive director of the head of the city's Buffalo Sewer Authority and the Buffalo Water Board. And if you'll remember, there's been some reporting that the city, after the Flint water crisis took fluoride out of Flint, Michigan's water, the city of Buffalo, without telling anyone, took fluoride out of the water. And O.J. McFoy of the Buffalo's Water Board has not made any public statements. He has not been found anywhere. I've seen on his Twitter that he goes out and he's like doing these national talks on like water equity and stuff, but he has not showed up. So here's a statement to Rashid Wyatt. O.J. McFoy is not coming to the council chambers. He has not come. He will never come to the council chambers. So I'm calling on the Common Council to use their subpoena power to bring O.J. McFoy to heel. Bring O.J. McFoy to the council chambers. Use the subpoena powers I'm calling on the Common Council to use their subpoena powers given to them by the city's charter to bring O.J. McFoy into the council chambers to not only answer questions about rising water rates in the city of Buffalo, but also to bring transparency to the fluoridation of the city of Buffalo's water. So OJ is on the run. I don't know where he is. Maybe he's driving a white Bronco. He's probably not. But if you see OJ McFoy, tell him that there's citizens in the city of Buffalo that want some answers, and he's really the only guy that can provide them. So hopefully he does come to future council meetings, but I'm not optimistic, and if I was a betting man, I would not put money on OJ McFoy ever showing up in the council chambers unless the council uses their subpoena power to bring him there. So that's OJ on the run. So received and filed. Received and filed. So during today's Civil Service Committee meeting, it was a total of 1 minute long. And don't let the length of the meeting fool you. There were some major developments, right? So during this meeting, the city of Buffalo, Majority Leader Leah Halton Pope of the Ellicott District, she called forward items 1 and 10 from the tabled item. So the City of Buffalo Civil Service Commission or Civil Service Committee has items that have been tabled that are essentially on the back burner. So the Common Council brought forward the item that was filed by Mitch Nowakowski that called for an investigation based on the investigative posts reporting on the Jill Rutman, or the fire clerk that was paid $500,000 without working for the city. So that item was brought forward by the Common Council, and then it was received and filed. So essentially they brought back the item that was about the city clerk being paid $500,000 without actually working for the city. They brought it forward to discuss it, and then they received and filed it and put it in their cabinet to collect dust for eternity. So I think it's a good example. The Common Council, they're not dumb, right? They're not dumb. They're just cowards. So they essentially, I think it's a good example too of Mitch Nowakowski. When this story broke in September, he was entering not only his own district race, but also he was kind of at that point jockeying to be state senator. So this was a huge issue too, right? When the investigative post came out with the city fire clerk getting paid $500,000 for multiple years without ever working for the city, that was huge news and people wanted answers. So it was kind of just another textbook example of the Common Council knowing the moment. They know they have to take a stand. So they file a resolution calling on the controller to do investigation, demanding answers, saying we're going to get to the bottom of it. And then it's mid-July now, right? So the council, no one's paying attention. Everyone's on summer break. People are enjoying our algae plumes in Lake Erie. You know, people are not paying attention to the council. There's nothing going on. They know that they're about to go on their August recess, so they know no one's paying attention. So they bring forward this item in their 1 minute long Civil Service Committee meeting, and they just table it. And they bring forward the tabled item, they receive and file it, and just make it go away. And hopefully no one noticed. But I noticed. I watched the meeting, and I was prepared to do a segment on how the city of Buffalo is continuing to violate Civil Service 16.4 law about provisional appointment. I was ready to do a segment, and then they brought forward this item for no reason and received and filed it. So I hope that we still need an investigation. We never got to the bottom of it. And I still want to know, why was Jill Rutman receiving a paycheck? Who authorized that? And, we never got to the bottom of how it happened. How many other employees are getting paid without knowing? We need an investigation. We're calling on the city's controller and the Common Council to do an actual investigation, doing an audit. We need answers. And just because you've received and filed the item doesn't mean it's going to go away. We want to know. We want to know what happened. So that's received and filed. The investigative post, the Jill Rutman story, we hope that we get answers, but at this point we can't rely on the Common Council to bring us answers. We need to keep pressing forward, keep asking questions, and keep bringing it to the forefront. So thank you to the investigative post for doing that story. I think if it wasn't for journalism in the city, the auditor definitely would never have found it. And I think it's just another example of how the Civil Service Committee, for the Common Council, their responsibility is to provide oversight to the city of Buffalo's civil service process. And they're really, at this point, almost an anti-oversight, right? So they're doing the opposite of oversight. They're intentionally brushing things under the rug and acting as a barrier towards actual oversight. So they have the power to subpoena people, to bring them into the chambers, to question them, and they're just failing to do that. I think even the systemic nature of the civil service violations that the city's doing is the council's complicit, right? Today's meeting was a minute long, right? So the city has over $500 million or over $500 million budget, like a massive civil service system, and the Common Council, the board of directors for the city, spends like on average, a minute to 2 minutes every other week actually holding civil service meetings. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's lots of other stuff going on that we don't know about. And without a board of directors without the oversight body actually providing oversight, it just illustrates and it contributes to the culture of the civil service culture in the city. And this kind of brings me back to my point of, the state of civil service in the city. It's not like they don't know too, right? I filed an item with the Common Council asking to be referred to the city's Civil Service Appeals Board, and I still have not heard from Council Member Mitch Nowakowski about my appeal. He has not contacted me, and I've not gotten any information to my email of how to be referred to the Honorable Civil Service Appeals Board. Essentially, the lack of oversight in the city's civil service committee is kind of created the situation where you see, right? I'm just one example of happened, right? I was a provisional employee. My employment was not supposed to last more than 9 months. And the city violated 16.4 of the city civil service law to not offer civil service exam and keep my provisional employment more than 9 months so that I could not get Article 75 termination proceedings. Essentially, what you have here, my example too, is you have the city's commissioners know they can just keep people provisional forever because they've kind of created a situation where the human resources commissioner has a direct subordinate who is also the president of the local AFS CME 650 union. So the person that's supposed to be representing the white collar employees is kind of compromised, right? She has a conflict of interest, and she uses this role. So my perception, right? I don't know if this is true or not. This is just how I perceive things, is that Tracy Healy, who is a personnel specialist 1 in the human resources department for the city of Buffalo, and also wears the double hat, right? So she's double hat Healy. So she's wearing 2 hats where she's a personnel specialist 1 in the human resources department. And then she's also the local AFS CME 650 president. So she's the president of the white collar union in her other hat. So my perception is that she uses her position as local AFS 650, Union 650, Union 650 president. She uses her position and her office, right? She has an office on the top floor of City Hall. I think it's like floor 26 or 28. She's a literal and figurative eye in the sky for the administration. So it's my perception, again, that she uses the confidential nature of her position as 650 president, where you have city's white collar employers coming to her in confidence, disclosing things to her that they wouldn't want the administration to know, that they wouldn't want their exempt bosses to know. They come to her in confidence, which is what I did. I came to her in confidence on several things. One was that my predecessor was named in the Nona Watson lawsuit. Another was that no civil service exam was being held. Another was that the city's chief information officer asked me to provide him with a script that would provide the administration with all the clock in, clock out data for every employee in the city of Buffalo. So I came to her a couple things that made me, sensitive issues that I came to her with that I believe now in retrospect were used against me in my termination, right? So she uses her position to kind of snuff out problems before they become real problems. And I think that's what happened to me in my case. And it's just an example of she uses her position, right? And this all happens because the Common Council is asleep at the wheel. They don't provide any oversight to the Civil Service Committee. They just use their 1 to 2 minute meetings to rubber stamp appointments. And I think the Common Council, because they do not provide oversight, it's created the culture where people like Tracy Healy, who wear double hats, have conflict of interest, are just kind of allowed to do things because they know there's no oversight. And I think most of all, Tracy Healy lacks the integrity to do her job. And Tracy Healy is corrupt. So that's Tracy Healy and a little bit about the city's civil service system. So sorry about that rambling segment. That was probably 8 minutes, which is 8 minutes longer than the city's board of directors spent today providing oversight to the civil service function of the city of Buffalo. Okay, let me catch my breath here. But your comments and questions are appreciated. So let me know if you have any comments or questions, not only during this live stream, but also maybe on some of my YouTube segments, or if you retweet my stuff. Retweets are definitely appreciated. And I guess the first half of the show, I focus on the city of Buffalo, specifically the entity which is the city of Buffalo. And I want to turn to an issue which is it's in the city of Buffalo, but the city of Buffalo, while they do have a place to play, they're not the ones leading the charge. So Fonzie scheme. So I think we all know what a Ponzi scheme is, right? We kind of know there's a person at the top that kind of exploits the people at the bottom, gets them to pay into things with a false hope promise, and then they get away with the money or the power, and then the people at the bottom. So yeah, Fonzie scheme. So Fonzie scheme is kind of another play on words that I don't know if I've invented it, but I think it helps kind of encapsulate what's going on right now with the reconnecting East Buffalo, the 33 project, or the Kensington Expressway, the Humboldt Highway, essentially the $1 billion project that's going to build a 3/4 mile long tunnel in the city of Buffalo, right? So it's a Fonzie scheme. So let's break that down. Fonzie scheme. What's a Fonzie? So a Fonzie is a finding of no significant impact. So what's that? So a finding of no significant impact. Essentially, the U.S. Department or the FHA, the Federal Highway Authority, and the New York State Department of Transportation, they issued a finding of no significant impact. So in order to build an infrastructure project, especially one of this size, the bureaucratic agencies in the government, they need to study the environmental impacts of projects, right? You can't just have people going around building things without knowing the long-term repercussions to our Mother Earth, to our planet, to the environment, right? So there has to be some oversight. So there's rules in place. So one of the things that you have to do is you have to do an environmental assessment, right? And at the end of an environmental assessment, you issue a declaration. You either say this project is going to have a significant impact on the environment, or it's not going to have a significant impact. Essentially, what the FHA and the New York State DOT, they issued a finding of no significant impact. So a Fonzie. So essentially, by them coming out and saying this project will have no significant impact on the environment, they can then move ahead with the project, and it means that they don't have to do the more cumbersome, the longer, the harder work, which is to do a full environmental impact statement, or an EIS. So if they found, instead of a Fonzie, if they had offered a FOISI, or a finding of yes significant impact, then that would require the governmental agencies to conduct a EIS, which is a longer process. So essentially, they've kind of taken a shortcut. So they're running a Fonzie scheme. So essentially, I don't know how someone with common sense could look at a $1 billion investment that's going to take multiple years, that's going to cover a 3/4 mile stretch of a major transportation corridor, and say that this project will have no impact on the environment, right? It kind of falls flat on its face in common sense. So the Fonzie scheme term is kind of articulate that the state and the federal government are running a Fonzie scheme, right? So they're doing a scheme where they're coming out with this environmental assessment that says this has no impact on the environment, so that they can then rush ahead and create the project without doing the further deeper work of doing a full environmental impact statement. So it's a Fonzie scheme, because who benefits from this Fonzie scheme, right? It's the politicians, the people power. So Mayor Pete can come to town. He can hold his PowerPoint saying, look, we're going to reconnect the community. The East Side is going to be brought together. Senator Hochul, the Senate Majority Leader, can all say, look, this project's going to be great. It's going to reconnect the thing. And really, in the short term, they get their short-term benefit of they get the voter support, right? It sounds great. Great, we're covering the highway. It's going to be good. But in the long term, without knowing what the full impacts will be, not only to the environment, but also to human health, without knowing those things, you're leaving it up into the air. And my fear, and a lot of other residents of East Buffalo also share the same concern, that this project is going to have a major significant impact to not only the environment, but to the health and safety of the people, the residents that live and work in the surrounding Humboldt Highway neighborhoods. So we are calling on the FHA and the New York State DOT to conduct a full environmental impact statement, or EIS, so that we, the residents of East Buffalo and the city of Buffalo, can know fully and have full transparency on the full ramifications of this project. And also, we are calling on the full removal of the Humboldt Highway. We're calling on the full removal of the Kensington Expressway project. And we want a full restoration of Frederick Law Olmsted's vision of a parkway. And I'm just talking on the internet, right? I'm saying this, I'm yelling out loud, I'm yelling out into the void. hoping it will hear me. And we can't. One of the ways we can stop them, one of the ways we're trying to, is through the law, right? Law and order, so lawsuits. So recently there's been several lawsuits filed by community-based organizations and actual citizens to try and stop the state's Kensington Expressway project. So there's been federal lawsuits and state lawsuits filed by community-based organizations like the East Side Parkways Coalition and the Western New York Youth Climate Coalition, amongst others. There's also been some plaintiffs of actual residents that have filed lawsuits trying to get this project stopped. And they're mostly, the plaintiffs are saying, hey, you did not follow the law. You did not comply with, climate legislation. You did not comply with the environmental laws that we have in place to protect Mother Earth, to protect our planet, right? And our communities and our neighborhoods. And we want you, before you build this project, to comply with the law. And we want you to stop the Fonzie scheme, and we want you to comply with the law, do a full environmental impact statement, and study this, bring it to the community. Yeah. We are calling for, these communities to base organizations. This is really, at this point, even starting to turn into a local movement, right? So you even had locally, this past June in the elections, you had the Erie County Democratic Committee, so run different races, and a lot of the establishment candidates actually lost to committee candidates that were involved with things like ESP or the East Side Parkways Coalition that support further study of this issue, but also the full removal of the highway and a restoration of, we want to go back to horse and buggy thinking, right? We want trees, we want natural earth, and we also want the poison plumes to be stopped. So, and I think ESP, they sent out a request earlier for art. So I'd like to perform some art here live for you. You'll be the first audience to hear this, but they're requesting some art, right? So I think, podcasting is an art, but also the music is art. So I don't know if I've written a song. I think creatives or artists will say that they don't really write things, like you have muses speak to you. So one of the muses, they spoke to me a song that I'm going to perform here live on the radio for the first time. I did it in an open mic, but I've not performed it live on the internet. And I'm a little afraid, so yeah, don't jump out at me through your screens if I mess up. But this is what I hope could be like a folk song or maybe some sort of protest song. Because I think when the governor came to town unannounced and didn't tell anyone they were coming, they just showed up at the community organization. They showed up on Bailey Ave and essentially invited all their insiders in to create a propaganda scene. But everyone that was outside, the actual residents, they kept them out. And they just said, no toxic tunnel, no toxic tunnel, no toxic tunnel. And it was good. It's a good protest, but it's kind of repetitive and it needs, we don't want the no toxic tunnel. So here's a song that I wrote that I hope maybe people take to it, or maybe other artists could modify it, maybe some sort of folk chanting song. But it's about the Humboldt Highway. So here it goes. Humboldt Highway, poison plumes, toxic tunnel, we don't want you. Hamburg, Hochul's, holy commute. East Side gets those fatal fumes, those fatal fumes, those fatal fumes. East Side gets those fatal fumes. Humboldt Highway, poison plumes, toxic tunnel, we don't want you. Humboldt Highway, poison plumes, toxic tunnel, we don't want you. Humboldt Highway, poison plumes, toxic tunnel, we don't want you. Humboldt Highway, poison plumes, toxic tunnel, we don't want you. Hamburg, Hochul's, holy commute. East Side gets those fatal fumes, those fatal fumes, those fatal fumes, fatal fumes, those fatal fumes. Humboldt Highway, poison plumes, toxic tunnel, we don't want you. So Thank you. Sorry if I pierce anyone's eardrums. That's kind of the I guess that would be what do they call it? The the acoustic version, but it's the vocal version. So I think I'm gonna keep modifying it and maybe add. I also have a verse too that I've been working on. That goes the east side of town as a charnel ground, so maybe I'll incorporate that too. But yeah, Humboldt Highway, poison plumes, toxic tunnel. We don't want you, right? The residents of East Buffalo. We don't want the toxic tunnel. We want the full restoration of Frederick Law Olmsted's parkway system, and we want the full removal of the Kensington Expressway. Yeah, that verse on Hamburg Hochul, like, so Kathy Hamburg Hochul, she says she's from Buffalo, right? But she's not. She's from a suburb called Hamburg. And I think the line about the holy commute is really this project and the state DOT, right? They're doing what their mission is. Their mission is to maintain vehicular capacity, right? That's all they care about is getting, and Kathy Hochul said it first, get them in, get them out, get them in, get them out. And I think, right? So I think the problem with the Kensington Expressway, right? The original vision, the original way that the city of Buffalo was built by Frederick Law Olmsted. He was a landscape architect. He designed the Central Park in New York City, right? One of the most beautiful world-class parks. He also designed the city of Buffalo's entire parkway system. And it was this fully connected green parkway system. The idea was that you would build a city in a park instead of a park in a city. And the idea was to help residents and people that live in the city to have, access to green nature everywhere. They could essentially get around the entire city under trees, under tree covers, under greenery. And so that was built in the 1800s. In the 1900s, we had the invention of the car, right? We built a car, which was great for individual transportation. So in the 1950s, after World War II, right, you had the Federal Highway Administration and, the federal government, build highways. We built highways everywhere. And part of that was building highways in cities, right? So the thinking in the 1950s, and through research, I found that they looked at like Frederick Law Olmsted as like horse and buggy thinking. And they wanted to, right, the times. It's all about the times. In the 1950s, it was about, we're building our society for the car. The car is the newest, greatest invention. We need to build our society for the car. So that made sense at that time with that thinking, right? Cars, to tear down the parkways and just build a highway. It was the best way to get people in and out in the city, right? Because you had this commuter class, you needed to get to jobs in the city, then you needed to get home. And it was all about moving people, efficiency, and vehicles. And that was, I think that's had a legacy, right? So that some of the unintended consequences of that decision were the actual residents that live by the Kensington Expressway, their health has suffered tremendously, right? You see elevated levels of asthma, elevated levels of cancer, of heart disease, all most likely, and people with common sense could see that, having a major highway next to your house that's sending, fatal fumes, sending gasoline, carbon monoxide right into your lungs directly is not good for your health. So it's 2024, right? I fear multiple sanctions, right? So I think one of the reasons we need to go back to the original vision is that literally society is changing, right? So whether we're fighting climate change, also the economy shifted, right? So in the 50s, right, you had people that lived in the suburbs that worked downtown. So people needed to live in the suburbs, commute downtown, go to their office job, clock in their 9 to 5, and drive home. And that was the economy, right? And I think with the invention of the internet, digital technologies, just right the times, right? You're seeing remote work. So people don't even go to work anymore. They stay at home. So that literally there's no jobs downtown. There's no need to have people in the suburbs go to their office, come back, go to their office, come back 5 days a week. That's not the reality of the economy we have, and it will not continue to be the economy going forward, right? We're seeing, and also the car, right? So right now, people drive cars, people own their cars. I think in the future, I think you're already seeing it through the tendencies of the younger generation to not even want a car, right? They want to live in a city, live in a neighborhood where they can live, work, and play all in the same spot. They don't need a car. They don't need to pay, to rent a car, for gasoline, for insurance, for mechanics. They just want to live in a place. And so I think, and also you're seeing technology, right? So self-driving cars are becoming a thing. And I quickly think you're going to see a society that there's going to be less cars on the road because people will be using these self-driving cars, and people don't actually need a car. They need a ride, right? So they just need to get from point A to point B. So whether it's ride sharing, and I think, so demand for cars is going down. I think you're seeing demand for even the car lifestyle, the suburban commuting lifestyle is going away. And it is a mistake. I think we need to think forward. What's going to build the best city 100 years from now, not what maintains vehicular capacity in 2024. And what's old is new again. We want, and really the only way to heal our city, the only way to do it, not the only way, but the way to do it, especially given the resources, right? The East Side is getting $1 billion investment on this project, and it's just going to maintain the status quo, maintain vehicular capacity, going in and out, for our city's suburban class, right? It's convenient for them to get in and out in the city, and we need to start prioritizing the people that live and work right in that neighborhood. And one way we can do that is through, rebuilding the original parkway system and creating a world-class park system that I think studies have shown that parks literally increase the value of houses, right? Ask someone whose backyard backs up to Central Park how that park has worked out for their property values and for, their family's generational wealth. That's a little rant and a little song on the Fonzie scheme. What do you think? What do you think in the comments? I like the term. I think it's catchy. I think people know what a Ponzi scheme is, so it's not that hard that people can understand a Ponzi scheme. But essentially, the state and the feds have bypassed the full EIS, environmental impact statement, by issuing a Fonzie and having to do a less rigorous environmental assessment and kind of pushing through this project. Not only this phase, which has been marketed as the phase 1, but they said, we're going to start to study phase 2, phase 3 to connect the whole parkway system. And there's many problems many reasons that connecting the full system will be a problem, but we need to study it up front. So we're demanding a full environmental impact statement, and we're demanding the full removal of the Kensington Expressway. Sorry, I burped. Let me try to do it again for the TikTok. We're demanding a full environmental impact statement, and we are demanding the full removal of the Kensington Expressway. So that's the Fonzie scheme. So Muckraker punk. Three bullet points in the truth. Right? So Muckraker punk. 3 bullet points in the truth. And I think this is my slogan, right? It's catchy and I think to the point. I took inspiration from punk rock, which they go, punk rock, 3 chords in the truth. So I think 3 bullet points. And the reason I said bullet points is, right, the police showed up at my house to do a mental health evaluation. They have bullets. I don't have bullets, but I have my tongue and I have bullet points. So that's how I'm going to fight the powers with bullet points. So hopefully they don't show up at my house again, but, I wouldn't put anything past them. But Muckraker punk. 3 bullet points in the truth. So I have released I don't know if it's mine, but I've released the body cam footage, and I've been releasing some TikToks from my mental health evaluation. I'll say that I have found this podcast to be therapeutic in a way. I think it's to bottle up all my energy and passion, and I think this is I view podcasting as a creative expression. So thank you for tuning in and watching my show. It even if no one's watching it, it helps. It's my therapy, right? Muckraking is my therapy. It helps me. It helps my mental health. Just, and I think someone on Twitter, they had a good point of like, anyone concerned with things in the city of Buffalo, it's like you're screaming into a void. And I've definitely felt that a little bit of like, even, whether I find them violating the law, you yelled it on the internet or yelled out into the void and you think people will care, and then no one really does. But that's not the point. The point is that you show up and you rake muck. So I think it was Solzhenitsyn. He said, anyone can stand up for the truth, but for the real truth, you must go to jail. So I don't know if, I thought about that quote a lot. I think it's one of those quotes where you just think about it still. And the more you think about it, the more you don't understand it, or the more you maybe understand it, there's always more layers to it. Yeah. So I think that's a quote that's inspired me. But I got about 10 minutes left. 7 minutes left. So let's see what else I can do. So this is a clip. I think this scene from Game of Thrones, it kind of encapsulates, and I'm going to do some video editing on it, but it encapsulates kind of what turned me into the Muckraker punk, right? So me being terminated and essentially perceiving that my own union president instigated my termination. So I think this is like a perfect moment. I've used that person, like that's me, right? So or that's kind of why my logo is the Night King, is like, I wasn't always this way. They made me this way, right? They terminated me. They violated my rights. And yeah, and then I never got my side of the story staking. So like, I view kind of this lead White Walker, or the garden lady, that's like Tracy Healy, like putting a knife in my back, right? She was my union president. She was supposed to represent me. I was supposed to be able to go to her in confidence, and she violated that trust, and she exploited her conflict of interest, and yeah, ultimately turned me into who you see here on the internet, Muckraker Punk. So I guess in a way, and I thought it, right, it's been a year now, so I have gotten over it. Let's see. I have not forgiven them, and I also have not forgot it, but I'm okay now. My mental health is much better. But yeah, I think, see, I gotta find so yeah, Muckraker Punk. So I think, yeah, I think in a way, getting fired from City Hall was maybe the best thing that ever happened to me. Now that I'm like a year out, it didn't feel so great at the time, but I think it's really pushed me to maybe definitely think more outside the box, right? Like once you get kicked out of the system and you're not allowed there, right? So like the Common Council does not acknowledge me. They do not respond to me anymore. My own council member, who is bought and paid for by my former supervisor, Daryl Springer. So Daryl Springer, who's not a resident of Mitch Nowakowski's district, he's donated significant financial donations to both Mitch and his partner, who is a city court judge. So essentially, my boss has bought off my council member. So my representative will not represent me. His legislative assistant tells me that she doesn't need to communicate with me. And so yeah, I've been I was in the system, right? And then I got ejected. I'm now no longer interested in it, which is kind of like the Night King, right? He was, we never got his side of the story, right? So the Night Walker the Night King was just kind of silent, right? So that's kind of how I felt a little bit, is being silenced, right? You get kicked out, you get fired with no termination proceedings, nothing. You're just kicked to the curb and just left on the outside. So I think right. I think there's something also that, I kind of think the Night King got rigged in Game of Thrones, but yeah, I think it's just pushed me to maybe think more outside of the box, and I think I'm excited to just carry this podcast forward and maybe even just offer news, right? I think so. I went to a session by the Investigative Post, and they talked about how there's no news anymore, right? The Buffalo News, who the Common Council in the city still uses as like the regions, right? When they publish information, they publish in the Buffalo News, which no one's reading. The Buffalo News is printed in Cleveland, Ohio now, right? They can't report on major stories because they need to transport the papers from one end. Their website's a mess. So yeah, you're just seeing, I think, not only in Buffalo, but nationally, you're seeing, and globally too, right? You're seeing the deterioration of local news. And I'm hoping Muckraker Punk can just be my little part of trying to keep eyes on, try to be local media, because we don't have it anymore. So I think it's up to us citizens and individuals to kind of fill the void, whether that's, tweeting about something, and I think I don't think we're going back to the days of like 2, 4, and 7, right? Or like one Buffalo News that is the source of truth. I think it's, as we move forward in the 21st century, I think keeping our governments, whether it's federal, state, local, it's going to be bottom up. It's going to be a bottom swell. It's going to be everyone doing their part, right? I can only there's only so many time in a day. I only have so many resources. I can keep my eyes kind of on the Common Council, but I don't have it at the time to fully, scope them out. But I think, yeah, it's just going to be everybody, whether that's sending out a tweet of something you saw in your neighborhood, interaction you had, but it's going to be, individuals just doing their little part to be the new media, right? Because we don't have a newspaper anymore. We really don't have any local reporting. And I think the Common Council, they know, right? They brought forward the Investigative Post, Joe Ruttman, Fire Clerk item today because they know it's mid-July. Everyone's on summer vacation. Nobody's paying attention because we're about to go on our August recess. Let's get this off the table, make it go away. We took advantage of it. The moment was there. Yeah, so I think just the more of us that are aware of what's going on, the more of us that are informed, obviously, the better, right? We live in a democracy where who are they accountable? They're accountable to us, the taxpayer, the citizen, and it's really up to us to be as informed as we can. And nobody can know everything, but we can all know everything, right? If we all know a little bit, we add up all that knowledge together, all that information, and I think I'm excited too to not only just use Muckraker Punk as a way to kind of coordinate citizens and being informed, and but yeah, just one little part. How can we use technology? How can we use citizens to keep the people in power, how to keep them accountable, and to really they work for us, right? We don't work for them, they work for us. How can we use technology, whether it's podcasting, whether it's tweeting, but everybody has a part to play. So I just encourage everyone, thank you for listening to my show, listening to my content, retweeting stuff if I retweet it, or just asking questions. I think that's all we can do is ask questions. And I had a friend of mine, after my former supervisor, Kirk McLean, threw me out of a meeting just for me eating a bite of my panini sandwich. He said, that's how you know you've made it. When you can walk into a room and they scurry out, that's how you know you made it. So I think I took some inspiration in that too, of maybe it was something, and too as an artist too, right? So I think maybe as a podcaster, something I posted, it provoked artists. They say it's not whether you like it or not, it's whether it provokes emotion. So if my content provokes emotion, whether that's strong feelings of hate or strong feelings of liking it, I've succeeded as an artist, right? I've provoked emotion. It's not whether you like it or don't like it. It's have I made you feel something as an artist, as a Muckraker Punk. So yeah, that's a little more the philosophical side of muckraking. So I'm excited. It's therapeutic. It's end of my show now, 30 seconds. And I feel better from just, getting stuff off your chest, and, being the eyes and the ears for people. So, thanks for tuning in, for the live streamers, those people on Twitch and Facebook that tune in, whether you're tuning in now live or watching my segments later. I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm on Twitter at MuckrakerPunk, and also, support my content, right? Muckraking doesn't pay the bills yet. So if you'd like to support me, go to my Patreon, patreon.com/muckraker, and my domain, muckrakerpunk.net, and that's how you can support me. So thank you. That's the end of the show, and till another one, this is Muckraker Punk. 3 bullet points in the truth.